After Robin Gibb's death, the world thought his story had ended. But what came next shocked everyone. His wife, who had remained silent through years of rumors and scandal, finally spoke out. Her words not only reopened old wounds, but revealed a side of Robin that few ever saw. For decades, fans believed they knew the truth about the Bee Gees legend's personal life. But her confession painted a very different picture.
In retrospect, do you think it was good for the family dynamic, all your relationships with parents, brothers, everything, that the Bee Gees had such remarkable success and became such public figures?
Yes, I do. It's what you dream about. I don't know anything else, and I don't think I would do anything any differently. I love music. I'm working with the Royal Philharmonic with my son at the moment, RJ, on the Titanic Requiem, which is for 2012.
In this video, we're going to uncover what Robin Gibb's wife finally revealed about his affairs and the secrets she kept hidden for years. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Robin Gibb seemed to have everything. The Bee Gees were once again music royalty, admired by younger artists, celebrated with awards, and loved by fans across the world.
My first memories of being alive, my conscious memory that I have a picture of is Spring Valley in the Isle of Man.
At home, he appeared settled. He had been married to Dwina Murphy Gibb since 1985, a former Druid priestess, artist, and writer. Together, they lived what many described as an unconventional life, even by rock star standards. In interviews, Dwina spoke about being open-minded and allowing Robin personal freedom. To some, it sounded romantic. To others, it sounded risky. She once hinted that their marriage allowed for creativity and companionship beyond what most would consider traditional. Her words drew attention even then. But behind the smiles, something else was happening quietly. A woman named Claire Yang, sometimes spelled Claire in reports, was hired to help care for Robin and Dwina's Oxfordshire estate. She was polite, quiet, and always around. Too much, according to some observers. Years later, the truth came out. Claire Yang was more than just an employee. She and Robin had been involved in a private relationship, and from that relationship came a child, a little girl named Snow Evelyn Robin Juliet Gibb, born in 2008. That part is confirmed through legal records and was publicly acknowledged by the Gibb family after Robin's death. What no one could agree on was how long the affair had lasted, or who knew about it. The tabloids turned it into a drama. Headlines screamed betrayal, while others described Dwina's response as spiritual acceptance. But even that is partly speculation, because no major interview ever captured Dwina's exact emotions. What she did confirm years later was that she and Robin shared a deep bond that survived even their most painful moments. So, was it forgiveness or quiet heartbreak? Only those inside their home knew for sure. Still, fans couldn't help but ask, how could the man who sang "How Deep Is Your Love" end up living a story that sounded like too much heaven for one man to handle? Behind every song he wrote, there always seemed to be pain. And now, the world wondered if that pain had finally escaped the lyrics and entered his life. The stage lights dimmed, but the questions only grew brighter. The next chapter of Robin Gibb's life proved that even legends can lose control of the harmony they fought to protect. Because the affair and the child were only part of what shocked those closest to him. There were more whispers, rumors of something deeper, something that could have changed how the world remembered him entirely. And those whispers weren't about another woman. They were about a secret some believed he took to the grave. It began quietly, a whisper that followed fame like a shadow. At first, no one believed that Robin Gibb could be part of something so personal, so ordinary, so human. He was a legend, a man who sang to millions, seemingly untouched by scandal. But when the story broke that Robin had fathered a child with his housekeeper, Claire Yang, that whisper turned into a storm. Newspapers across Britain ran the story, often with intrusive photos and cruel captions. And while the world was shocked, what surprised people most was Dwina Gibb's reaction. She didn't rage in public. She didn't seek revenge. Instead, she said something that caught everyone off guard, that she and Robin had a special understanding. To many, that sounded like forgiveness. To others, it felt like heartbreak disguised as calm. Rumors spread that their marriage had been open for years, that Dwina, known for her druidic beliefs and advocacy for spiritual freedom, had accepted Robin's need for companionship beyond their marriage. But again, that remains unconfirmed. There are no verified statements from either Robin or Dwina directly describing such an arrangement. Only hints, interpretations, and tabloid stories that may have exaggerated the truth. Still, inside their quiet Oxfordshire home, one fact remained undeniable. A child had been born. Her name was Snow Evelyn Robin Juliet Gibb, carrying the name of her father, the man whose voice defined love for a generation. To Robin, she was innocent, a miracle born of a mistake, perhaps, but one he loved deeply. Yet that love came with consequences. It affected his family, his reputation, and even his final years. Because this wasn't just a story about betrayal, it was about a man torn between guilt and affection, between the family he had and the one he never expected. And that's where the real heartbreak began. After the affair became public, life inside Robin's household was never the same. Those close to the family claimed that Claire Yang had grown emotionally attached, believing Robin might eventually leave his wife. Others said she remained respectful even after the truth surfaced. What's certain is that Robin continued living with his wife Dwina at their Thames estate. Claire, meanwhile, was provided with a home nearby, reportedly purchased by Robin for her and their daughter. That detail was later confirmed through estate records following Robin's death in 2012. But it wasn't the property that drew headlines. It was the silence that followed. Neither Robin nor Dwina ever publicly denied the relationship. They didn't grant interviews or attempt to justify what had happened. They simply continued with their lives, as if love, despite all its complications, was still something worth protecting. Even so, whispers continued about whether Robin and Dwina had private understandings of their own. Some gossip columns suggested that Dwina had her own partners and that there was a mutual arrangement, though this was never verified. What is confirmed is that Dwina once described herself as bisexual in a past interview and spoke about honoring love in all its expressions. That single statement was enough for tabloids to imagine their marriage as unconventional. But love, in any form, can be fragile. Around this time, Robin's health began to decline. Friends later shared that he carried deep guilt, that even when he smiled on stage, his heart felt heavy. He worried about his children and how they might see him in the future. As one insider put it, Robin was a man who could sing about pain, but rarely found the words to speak about it. By 2010, his world had grown smaller. His brothers were gone, his marriage was strained, and the little girl he had late in life reminded him daily of both joy and consequence. That's when another kind of rumor began to circulate. The kind that questioned not just who Robin loved, but how he loved. Between admiration and curiosity, the tabloids began hinting at something else, that perhaps Robin Gibb had another secret, one he had supposedly hidden far longer than anyone realized, what the headlines called a rumored gay affair. Here's the truth. There is no verified record, no documented evidence, and no credible source confirming that Robin Gibb ever had a gay relationship. Every claim suggesting otherwise came from anonymous insiders, gossip columns, or speculative blogs written after his death, not from people who actually knew him. So why did people believe it? Because Robin's nature was gentle, emotional, and sensitive, traits that the press, in their ignorance, often labeled as mysterious. He wasn't loud or dominant like many rock stars. He was reflective. He wrote about vulnerability, and the public often turned that sensitivity into speculation. It's worth remembering that Robin Gibb was a deeply private man. Even his confirmed affair with Claire Yang only became public when it could no longer be concealed. So when people speculated about his sexuality, it revealed more about society's obsession with secrets than about him. In a world that feeds on gossip, silence can easily become its own story. But true or not, those whispers caused pain for the people who loved him most. His wife, his children, and his devoted fans all watched as rumors replaced remembrance and gossip overshadowed grief. Because as Robin's health declined, he was facing something far more serious than scandal. He was confronting his own mortality. In those final years, surrounded by those who still loved him despite everything, the man behind the music began seeking peace, forgiveness, and time. So how did Robin Gibb, one of the most recognizable voices of his era, spend his last days, and who stood beside him once the cameras were gone? That's where the real story begins, and where his final secret is quietly revealed. By 2010, Robin Gibb was a man fighting two battles, one against the tabloids outside and another within his own body. He was diagnosed with colorectal cancer, which eventually spread to his liver. At first, he told friends he believed he could overcome it. He had always thought of himself as resilient, the one who survived after losing his brothers too soon. But as his health faded, the strong, confident Robin the world remembered from the stage began to disappear. Yet something unexpected happened during this time. Dwina Gibb never left his side. Despite everything, the affair, the child, the rumors, she remained by him with quiet loyalty. Visitors often recalled seeing her at his hospital bedside, reading to him, holding his hand, and keeping the outside world away. Whatever pain had once existed between them seemed to give way to compassion. Even Barry Gibb, his last surviving brother, once said that Robin lived for love. It wasn't an exaggeration. To Robin, love was complicated, imperfect, but sacred all the same. And as he weakened, those who visited noticed that his voice had softened, not only in tone, but in emotion. He spoke often about family, forgiveness, and the importance of closeness. In later interviews, Dwina revealed that during his final months, Robin wrote poems, often at night when he couldn't sleep. One ended with the line, "Even when the music stops, the heart must still keep time." It was haunting, leaving many to wonder, was he writing to his wife, his daughter, or perhaps both? Even as illness took hold, the dual life he had led remained in the background. Reports suggest that Robin arranged financial provisions for his daughter, Snow, to ensure she would be cared for after his passing. That is verified. Estate records confirm trust allocations mentioning her by name. But beyond financial matters, What Robin wanted most was something harder to secure: peace between the two worlds he loved. When Snow Evelyn Robin Juliet Gibb was born in 2008, few could have predicted how symbolic her name would become. Snow, representing purity and forgiveness. Evelyn, meaning wished for child. And Robin Juliet, after the father who wanted her to carry both his name and his love. For a time, she lived quietly with her mother, Claire Yang, in a home near the Gibbs Thames estate, reportedly a property Robin purchased for them. That was later confirmed through property records published in the British press after his death. Still, the arrangement was never simple. Rumors suggested that Dwina allowed Robin to visit Snow in private, but avoided appearing with him publicly. However, no verified interviews or family statements ever confirmed this, so it remains speculative. What is certain is that Robin stayed involved in Snow's life until his final year. Friends said he often spoke about her with affection, calling her his miracle child. To some, that was bittersweet, a reminder that even the most talented artists can't escape human contradictions. Robin once told an interviewer that he believed in destiny, that everything, even the painful parts of life, happens for a reason. Those who knew him best said that belief kept him steady through the chaos. By 2011, his health had declined. He was moving in and out of treatment. His body had weakened, yet his spirit remained unbroken. Spending more time at home surrounded by family, it was said that he and Dwina began to talk again, not as husband and wife weighed down by scandal, but as two people who had shared a lifetime filled with music, mistakes, and meaning. One friend recalled seeing them holding hands during one of Robin's last public appearances. They didn't speak, the witness said. They just smiled at each other. A kind of forgiveness without words. It wasn't the ending the tabloids expected, but it was the one Robin seemed to choose. In May 2012, Robin Gibb passed away at 62. The news shocked the world. For fans, it marked the end of an era. For his family, it closed a complex, beautiful, and painful chapter. At his funeral, Dwina stood at the front of St. Mary's Church in Thames, dressed in white. She didn't cry publicly, at least not visibly, but witnesses said her hands trembled as she read a poem she had written for him. The poem wasn't about betrayal or grief. It was about light, eternity, and the belief that love never truly ends. In its own way, that said everything. Later reports revealed that Claire Yang and Snow were not present at the main ceremony, but paid their respects privately. This was confirmed by multiple media outlets at the time, including the BBC and The Guardian. After the service, Robin's coffin was carried through the streets as Bee Gees songs played in the background. People wept openly, singing "How Deep Is Your Love?" But behind the tributes and flowers, there was one final mystery. A note Robin was said to have written before his death. It was described as a personal message left for Dwina, expressing his love for both families and asking for unity after he was gone. Though it has never been verified, it has been mentioned across several fan forums and second-hand accounts from people close to the family. If it was true, it matched the kind of man he was. Someone who, despite his mistakes, always tried to keep peace. In one rare interview, Robin said, "I don't fear death. I fear leaving things unsaid." Perhaps that's why he continued to write music and poetry until his last days. Silence, for him, was something he couldn't live with. But what did his family eventually say about all those rumors, the open marriage, the affair, and the child he left behind? And how did they protect his memory when the world tried to tear it apart? In the months after Robin Gibb's passing, his family faced two battles, one against grief and the other against gossip. Newspapers revived old stories, repeating every rumor about the affair, the daughter, and the so-called open marriage. But this time, the family didn't respond. There were no statements, no interviews, and no arguments. It wasn't silence born from denial. It was silence born from dignity. Dwina Gibb, often portrayed as the heartbroken wife, quietly became the guardian of not just Robin's estate, but also his memory. She continued living in their Oxfordshire home, where she still keeps his writing desk and notebooks untouched. In the few interviews she gave after his death, she chose her words carefully. She described Robin as complex, creative, and deeply loving, saying his heart was simply too big for one lifetime. She never spoke unkindly about Claire Yang. And maybe that silence, that calm acceptance, was her way of ending the story without bitterness. Barry Gibb, the last surviving brother, returned to the stage years later to perform Bee Gees classics in memory of his brothers. During one concert, he paused between songs and said softly, "I miss Robin's laugh the most." There was no mention of scandal, nor was there a need. For the Gibb family, love always spoke louder than rumor. Still, the tabloids made one last claim, that Robin's will left nothing to Claire Yang or Snow. That was partly true. Legal records showed that most of his estate went to Dwina and his 3 older children, while a separate trust fund was set up for Snow. That part is verified. It was Robin's quiet way of balancing things fairly, without attention. When Dwina was later asked how she managed to forgive him, her answer was simple. "I loved him." That was all. It sounded like a line from a Bee Gees song, only this time it wasn't sung, it was lived. The man who once wrote "Too Much Heaven" and "How Deep Is Your Love" left behind a life that reflected both. One filled with joy and sorrow, love and consequence. In the end, it wasn't the rumors or the mistakes that defined Robin Gibb. It was his music and the people who never stopped believing in him. More than a decade after his passing, his legacy remains untouched by scandal. His songs continue to echo on radio stations, in films, and in the hearts of fans who grew up hearing that unmistakable falsetto. Dwina still lives quietly, often attending tribute events, while his children, including Snow, have chosen privacy. They rarely appear in public, and that's likely just how Robin would have wanted it. His story was never about perfection. It was about being human, about the contradictions within every person who tries to love deeply while living under the public eye. The verified truth is straightforward. Robin Gibb had an affair that led to the birth of a child. His wife forgave him. He spent his final years trying to find peace and rebuild his connection with his family. The rumors about a secret gay affair or an open marriage have never been confirmed and remain based on speculation rather than facts. But one thing is certain. When Robin sang, every note carried a depth of emotion that couldn't be imitated. That emotion came from something real, from a man who knew love not as an idea, but as both a wound and a blessing. In his final interview, Robin said, "I've had a wonderful life. I've made mistakes, but the music always forgave me." Maybe that's the message he left behind, that his songs were his apology, his confession, and his way of finding redemption. As his melodies continue to play long after his voice has gone silent, one truth stands out. Robin Gibb didn't just sing about love, he lived it with all its messiness, bravery, and contradictions. If this story touched you, don't let it fade away. Because here on Retro Waves, every legend still has more to say. Hit like, subscribe, and share if you believe that even imperfect love deserves to be remembered. And tell us in the comments,